What is going on, guys? It's ThePowerBauer here, and you know what I love? Getting a brand new game unlike anything else I've ever seen. But you know what I hate? Getting the same game 4 times and trying to pass it off as something different. Back in 2004, Nintendo revealed their new brand of handheld console on the Nintendo DS, and man, were these things popular. Maybe it was the dual screens, maybe it was the wide variety of games, or maybe it was the fact that PictoChat is the greatest invention Nintendo has ever had. But no game had more commercial success than New Super Mario Bros. Released on May 15th, 2006. This game came out over 12 years ago. I was just finishing 2nd grade when this came out, and now I'm 21. Is it just me or does that not seem right? Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, Nintendo sort of began to neglect any 2D adventures for their popular franchises. 3D definitely was the big thing during this era, as everyone was enamored by the likes of Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. It almost felt like 2D was a thing of the past. But then, out of nowhere, a brand new 2D Mario game was revealed at E3 2004. People were so excited for a new 2D Mario adventure, as the last 2D Mario game before this was released almost 15 years prior, with Super Mario Land 2 in 1992. This game was met with almost universally positive reviews and was definitely a part of why the DS was so popular. The game's story is unlike any other Mario Bros. Game. Bowser Jr. kidnaps Peach, as opposed to the other games where Bowser kidnaps Peach. And people say all Mario games are the same. Just like any other 2D Mario game, the main objective is to travel from level to level, where you will reach the flagpole and eventually save Princess Peach. However, unlike previous entries, Mario's moveset is quite unique. The old Mario Bros. Games just had Mario run and jump, and that was pretty much it. New Super Mario Bros. Gave Mario some of his moves from his 3D games, like being able to triple jump or wall kick. This definitely gives a much better experience in my opinion compared to the older Mario Bros. Games. And it kind of makes sense that they would do this because Mario and all the enemies are 3D renders, but the backgrounds are 2D. This art style looked amazing back when it was first released, but honestly, I don't really know how I feel about it nowadays. Sometimes it looks great, while other times something just looks off. And since we're talking about new additions, this game added 3 brand new items in the Blue Shell, Mini Mushroom, and of course the Mega Mushroom. The Mega Mushroom was one of the biggest selling points surrounding this game, and it's easy to see why. Who wouldn't want to be a giant and just destroy everything in your path? Honestly though, this item is nothing more than just a gimmick. The time limit for the mushroom is very limiting, and all the segments with it are exactly the same. They just put a ton of enemies and blocks for you to break, and it just gets so repetitive. They could have done something so cool like make a final boss where you and Bowser both get the Mega Mushroom and you have to have a big battle. Literally. It was very underutilized, and it was just a way to convince people to buy the game. And the Blue Shell? I have mixed feelings about this power-up. When I was younger, I loved it. You simply run and go inside the Blue Shell, can break almost anything in your path. Actually, that's kind of similar to the Mega Mushroom now that I think about it, and I've never noticed that until just now. But going back to play this game as an adult, I don't like it for the exact same reason that I originally loved it. Sometimes I just want to run normally, but nope, I'm forced to spin in my shell, bounce off walls accidentally, and it just doesn't control very well. And lastly, we have the Mini Mushroom. It's pretty much the opposite of the Mega Mushroom, except there's no time limit. Mario turns tiny and has a much floatier jump, which can definitely come in handy. To counteract that though, Mario will die instantly if he takes any damage. But I'm okay with that because you in turn can become Italian Jesus. You actually can only access 2 of the game's worlds by defeating 2 of the bosses while Mini. I really do like this idea because it actually tests your ability of the game, but it isn't necessary if you don't want to 100% the game. And speaking of the game's worlds, New Super Mario Bros. Follows the normal progression of 2D Mario games. You got your grassy world, then your desert world, and so on and so on. Although the worlds aren't that unique, the game's bosses, oh boy! This may actually be my favorite part of the whole game. Each boss fits their world perfectly. Besides Bowser being the first major boss of the game, which I really still don't understand. This is actually one of the few Mario games with bosses that you don't see anywhere else. They aren't too crazy and are basically just powered up versions of normal enemies, but I actually like that idea. Making a weak enemy like a Goomba somewhat intimidating is a nice change and definitely gives the game an interesting feel. That being said, however, for being a new Super Mario Bros. Game, it really didn't try anything too new. The level design is very reminiscent of old 2D games, and the only real change is the few new power-ups. I mean, there also is the addition of star coins as a collectible. They aren't required to collect, but they do allow you to access item houses, and they definitely have more of an impact than the dragon coins from Super Mario World. I still have no idea what the f those were meant for. Even most of the mini games were just taken straight from Super Mario 64 DS and don't add anything. That doesn't mean they aren't fun as hell though. This honestly is part of the reason why I've never gambled in real life, because I think I may have actually gotten a gambling addiction from the Luigi Jack minigame. New Super Mario Bros. Was an incredible success, but looking back at it after all these years, it really wasn't nearly as revolutionary as I remember it being. It didn't try anything too crazy and was exactly what its name implies. It's literally a new Super Mario Bros. Game. But it was a great return to the 2D formula, and it led to a major development on the Nintendo Wii. New Super Mario Bros. Brought in millions and millions of dollars, so it was only right to transition to a home console with New Super Mario Bros. Wii on the Wii. The DS game may have been the return to 2D, but New Super Mario Bros. Wii improved almost everything and had one of the biggest additions of any Mario game for allowing for up to 4-player simultaneous gameplay. You can play as Mario and Luigi, no big surprise there, and then the very creative and unlike anything else, Yellow and Blue Toad. Why they didn't make players 3 and 4 Wario and Waluigi is beyond me. I guess that would require way too much creativity for Nintendo. At least they gave the Toads names in A La Gold and Buckenberry. And no, I am not kidding. Those are their official canonical names. To be fair, their names are much more creative than others like Cooper, Koops, Kooply, Koopy-Koo, Kroop. I think you get the point. The first game at least tried to be unique with its bosses, but we said fuck that and brought back the Koopalings. And at the time, this was amazing because we hadn't seen them in years and it was a breath of fresh air. God, we had no idea what we were in for. Them along with Bowser Jr. kidnap Peach with their Trojan cake, so Mario and the bros follow him. The game then shoots these boxes to be like, oh yeah, by the way, there's some new items, here you go. Kind of a boring way to introduce them if I'm being honest. I would have much rather just randomly ran into them while playing and not knowing what I was gonna get. The propeller mushroom lets you spin and fly like you have a propeller. Who would have guessed that? And the penguin suit is similar to the ice flower, but you have much more control while on ice and you can maneuver better underwater. I don't give two shits about shooting ice balls, but being able to not slide on ice, oh my god, this is my favorite power-up in any new Super Mario Bros. Game. Going back to the Koopalings, their battles are at least a little different from the previous fights. Each of their first fights is just a simple battle where you need to jump on them 3 times, but the fortresses are a much different story. They all get some sort of power-up like Wendy getting raising water and Lemmy's ball growing. Don't take that out of context. This adds a much appreciated change because I wouldn't have just wanted remakes of their fights from the earlier games. They still aren't very difficult though. And speaking of that, this whole game really isn't very difficult. That's the one aspect of the older games that they really didn't capture. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is way too easy, at least for me. Unless you play with 4 people and you jump on each other's heads and fall in the pits, and god, I hate that! 1 player works, 2 player is probably the most fun, but 3 and 4 player are just pure chaos. The movement options are pretty smooth, however. The Wiimote isn't the most comfortable for me personally, but I enjoyed using it for this game. The D-pad is perfect, and being able to do everything with literally 2 buttons is just easy to understand. But since this game is on the Wii, there of course are damn motion controls. Luckily, there's not too much, but sometimes it can be pretty annoying. Like, why do I have to tilt the Wii remote to tilt these stupid platforms? The only time it makes any sense is shaking the Wii remote in order to use the propeller. But besides that, it's completely unnecessary, and it's just a way to make it seem like this game could only function on the Wii. All of that being said, this is still a great game. It was a fantastic switch from handheld to home console for the new Super Mario Bros. Series. 4-player gameplay was revolutionary at the time, and it really popularized 2D platformers all over again. It made perfect sense to remake New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii to capitalize on the hype of the first game and bring new fans who only had a Wii. It would have made sense to stop there, and it sort of seemed like they would. But then, they made the exact same game again. Twice. 2012 was a weird year. The world was supposed to end, Mitt Romney almost somehow became president of the United States, and craziest of all, Nintendo actually thought the Wii U would sell well. Nintendo released 2 new Super Mario Bros. Games in 2012, only about 4 months apart from each other. First, New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS, which was a sequel to the original on the DS, and then New Super Mario Bros. U, which apparently isn't a sequel to the Wii version and is somehow something completely different. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, Nintendo. The previous games actually kinda seemed like new games. The DS game was a simple return to 2D, which we hadn't seen in 15 years. Good idea. The Wii game added 4-player gameplay. Good idea. But what did New Super Mario Bros. 2 add? A lot of coins? Who the f cares about collecting coins in a side-scrolling 2D platformer? The literal only thing that makes this game unique is the sheer amount of coins you can collect throughout the journey. But you don't get jack shit for it. Okay, sorry. You do get a new title screen for 1 million coins. 1 million! I'm sorry, but I have a life and can't do that. Okay, maybe I don't have a life, but I can't be asked to collect 1 million coins in New Super Mario Bros. 2. This game is way too short to set the goal of 1 million coins as the ultimate goal. I beat this entire game with a total of like 10,000 coins. That's literally 1% of the way to the new title screen. New Super Mario Bros. 2 does harken back to the old 2D Mario games with the return of the Super Leaf and Reznor as a boss for every world's tower. Honestly, I did not expect Reznor to return. I loved seeing them. But at the same time, they kind of devalue devalued their appearance by overusing them. Sure, each battle is a little different, but they all feel exactly the same, and they don't even get any more difficult throughout the game. You can literally beat the first battle in 2 seconds, and you only have to walk like 10 feet to avoid getting hit in the final battle. World 6 should not be as easy as World 1. Oh yeah, and remember when it was refreshing to see the Koopalings again? Well, guess who's back again? I wish they would have gone back to the original style of the first New Super Mario Bros. Game where they actually made creative world bosses, but at least we don't have to fight each Koopaling twice. Honestly, the only part of the Koopalings that I enjoy in this game is their short appearance in the final level of the game. Right before the final boss, there is a long pathway where all the Koopalings follow you in the Koopa Clown car. They make these large flashes which turn you into stone on these treadmill platforms which drop you directly into the lava, so you need to hide behind walls to avoid it while continuing to make your way to the end. This is a phenomenal idea, and it is a great example of creativity and good level design. Too bad this is pretty much the only screen in the whole game that tried something new. They even basically just copy-pasted the final boss from New Super Mario Bros. Wii into this game. Just like Wii, you beat Bowser and save Peach, but then Bowser is revived and becomes huge and you need to run away from him. Oh, but now you are escaping upwards instead of to the right. Wow, what a brilliant and creative idea. This was done amazingly in Wii because we didn't expect it and was never done before. But when this happened in New Super Mario Bros. 2, you're basically just sitting there like, yeah, no shit, Bowser's huge. And that's one of my biggest issues with this game. Besides the coins, there's really nothing that this game does that's new to the series. All the worlds feel exactly the same as the previous games, and besides Reznor, all the bosses are just taken from previous games too. It doesn't feel like the creators had any creativity or passion for this title, and they just wanted to capitalize on the popularity of the first two. The gameplay is still solid, but it's hard to differentiate this game from the other New Super Mario Bros. Games because they're just basically the same damn thing. Now, with all of that said, let's move on to the other New Super Mario Bros. Game released in 2012 titled New Super Mario Bros. U. The first time we had any idea that this game was being developed was during E3 2011, when a tech demo called New Super Mario Bros. Mii was shown off. It was literally just New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but you could play as your Miis, and it was in HD because it was on the Wii U. Now, it was cool to see Mario in HD, and it would have been great to play as your Miis in the next title. Why they didn't do that, I have no idea. But this wasn't a very strong start, because this directly led to people assuming that this game would be exactly the same as the Wii. And by golly, were they right! New Super Mario Bros. U released on November 18th, 2012 as a launch title for the Wii U, and was pretty well received. I will give this game some credit. In previous entries, Bowser Jr. kidnaps Peach and Mario has to chase them. But this game has Bowser kidnap the entire castle and throws Mario and the gang away, who have to make their way back to save Peach. It's not much of a change, but I do appreciate some creativity. And speaking of creativity, remember when it seemed lame for the Koopalings to return in New Super Mario Bros. 2? Well, they're back and lame as hell again. It was cool to see them back the first time, but you have to know when to stop. If they didn't appear in New Super Mario Bros. 2 and then returned for this game, it wouldn't have seemed as lazy because there at least would have been a game between them. This is also the era where the Koopalings just began to show up in literally everything. They're now in Mario Kart, Smash Bros, and I just praise the Lord that they didn't appear in Mario Odyssey. As much as I think the rabbits are fucking stupid, at least it wasn't the Koopalings. They even tried the same technique of bringing back an old boss to try to make you think the game had creativity with Boom Boom as the tower boss. But just like Reznor, he is way too easy and it's just a nostalgia trick for old fans. The one major power-up is the Super Acorn, which allows you to fly like a flying squirrel. And now I know I've said, and I will continue to say, that this game lacked creativity, but my god, I love this power-up. It can be so useful to glide to areas you couldn't reach before and even grab on the walls, which doesn't really help much, but it looks cool. This is probably the best controlled Mario has ever been in the air. The Super Leaf and Tanuki suit are good, and don't even get me started on the fucking Cape Feather, but I prefer the Squirrel suit to all of these. Now that I've praised the game for adding something amazing, let's dial it back and go back to what's important. Why this might be the laziest, most unnecessary, and most underwhelming Mario game of all time. The worlds. Exactly the same as every other game. Sure, it's basically a tradition at this point, but I would like to see some game eventually change the formula. The bosses, all the same as Wii, and Boom Boom just never gets difficult. And speaking of that, this game in general is way too easy. You can have 99 lives by the end of like World 3 or 4. And the level design? My god, is it bland! So many stages feel exactly the same, and you could mistake many of them for Wii stages. Of course, I am not talking about the Painted Swampland because that might be the greatest 2D Mario stage of all time. And it's for that reason for which I don't like the level design. This one stage proves that the developers had the creativity and originality to make this game unlike anything we've ever seen. And it's just so disappointing that it's only used very sparingly in a few small aspects of the game. I mean, at least the final boss is different. Why the f do they always make Bowser huge? This is the third game in a row. This got old after the second time. To be fair, they do actually have you fight Bowser instead of just avoiding his attacks, so it's at least a little different. And since I'm talking about the final level, I should mention that the music for Peach's castle is a darker and more menacing take on the Super Mario 64 theme, and I love it. Now, apparently this game was so good that it deserved a full game DLC in the form of New Super Luigi U. This is a much faster paced version of Mario U, where you only have 100 seconds to complete each stage. But the entire game is changed with new stages and even new movement. Luigi has his classic floatier jump, which allows for brand new level design. And since you can't play as Mario, the fourth player is Nabbit? I didn't really realize he was popular enough to be playable, but hey, at least they didn't just add a third Toad. Nabbit can't be hurt from any enemies, and he actually gains 1-ups for each power-up that he collects at the end of each level. It's basically just easy mode for a game that's already super easy. Mario Bros. Wii and Mario Bros. U kind of feel like an analogy for the Wii and Wii U as a whole. The first was very successful and really good for all fans, while the second just tried to capitalize and copy the first success, which led to it being way too similar. The analogy also works for the handheld games, except the 3DS was actually a good console. There are so many people that get all four of these games confused, and I can't blame them. All of these games blend together with no real distinction between them. Besides the first game, the bosses are pretty much exactly the same and all the game's worlds look identical. Very few power-ups differ between titles and the gameplay doesn't change either. Calling this series New Super Mario Bros. Day is just a straight up lie. Don't get me wrong, these games are great, but nothing worth calling new has been added since New Super Mario Bros. Wii, besides Painted Swampland and the Super Acorn, but I digress. This series has been basically driven into the ground with oversaturation, and I just hope Nintendo realizes when it's time to stop. Wait, what was that? They're remaking New Super Mario Bros. U? Ah, Well, let's see if they're at least adding anything new to the game. You can play as Toadette? Oh, I actually like that idea. But what's the Super Crown? It turns you into Peach! That's amazing. I wonder what the internet has to think about this. Oh my god!